Take a listen.
I shudder to ask this. What happens to the tariff cost you would bear once the tariffs go from 104 to 145%?
$229,000.
Just the tariff you would pay on $158,000 worth of product.
Mm-hmm. And we would have to come up with that in the 30 to 40 days it takes for the product to get to the U.S.
Wow.
And I can't get any more loans. I'm fully leveraged. I have my house on the line already. I can't get more loans.
Yeah, I mean, I
can't come up with that kind of money.
That's an astonishing number.
I'm not okay. I'm scared for my friends. I'm scared for myself. Like, they don't understand. This is certain death for us.
That's Beth Beneke, founder and CEO of Busy Baby. So what do you make of that?
I'm familiar with the deal. I'm familiar with the situation. I probably had that podcast sent to me 2,000 times already. I remember investors on Shark Tank, but we also have stories of hundreds of companies that have been on Shark Tank that also manufactured their product in China. As soon as it gets to 5 million in sales domestically, the same factories that are making it there knock it off and sell it at a 40% discount because they never have to recoup the R&D that the company put into making the product in the first.
And that's what a lot of people, this is going over everyone's head, I think, is that what he's saying is essentially what that woman is making, right? She makes a rubber mat that goes on the bottom of, I think, a high chair that stops stuff from spilling over. All right. So again, she put whatever research and development that cost, to make that thing. She had it patented. She did all this stuff, right? The upfront cost to her just to get to the manufacturing point is massive, right? Because of the country that we live in, there's a lot of rules and regulations. There's a lot of things we have to do so that people can't steal our product and just start selling it. So then what does she do? She turns over and she takes the manufacturing portion and goes to a Chinese company, shows them the ideas. If you've never gone through this before, it's an interesting process. But you're shopping around, you're trying to find out, who's the best to get this done. You find somebody, you sit down with them, you broker a deal. They're going to make X amount of units for whatever amount of cost, and you get that done. What's going to happen if this thing starts selling really well? What do you think is going to happen? What are they going to do? They're going to rip it off, right? And I understand that she's crying now and she's upset because, the fact that, she will not be able to make the payment at, in the end if things don't change. However, her business was doomed from the get-go, right? It's not like she's making a rocket ship or something like that. It's a piece of rubber in a particular shape with a mold, right? Now, I get it. Over here, there's a lot of steps you have to do, and you can protect yourself. What he's explaining to people, and this is what he keeps ramming through, is that all of these products, we're sending them over there to get manufactured to come back here. They're just stealing it.
Place, and they get wiped out a different way. They get wiped out by China. They just totally ignore the IP, and they can't go back and litigate. The crazy thing, Megyn, is Chinese companies use the American legal system to sue American companies after they've knocked them off. Why is that okay? Then they
so in other words, you are over here as an American company. You come up with a design. You do all this R&D to make sure it's a safe product. It's an effective product, and then you bring it to market here and in China. And in China, here you'd be protected by certain copyright laws or whatever you're using to protect your IP. But over there, you don't have that protection, so they just knock it off and they start selling it for cheap. That's what you're saying. That there's no respect for your IP.
Well, it's worse. Maybe when they're young, they're taught this is completely fair to do this. You steal, you cheat. It's part of the psyche of how you build your economy. It doesn't matter that it wasn't your idea or that you spent millions of dollars in R&D to create it. They simply don't give a shit. And that is what we have to fix. Because if they want to play with the big boys, including trading in Europe and everything else, stealing everybody's IP and then selling it back into those markets and flooding the markets with the exact same product at usually a 30 to 40% discount with no consequences is going to end up in a very bad place for everybody because they can't sustain that forever either. And look, everybody wants to do business in China. I want to do business in China. All I'm asking for, and I don't think I'm being unrealistic in this request, is give me a level playing field. Let me use their courts to litigate trade disputes and resolve them, just like they use ours.
Can you not do that?
Well, no, you can't. And I mean, just to give you a sense of how crazy it's gotten, there's a law on the books that says for Chinese companies, when they want to raise capital in America, they can go to the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, form a company, issue shares to Americans that aren't real shares. They're shadow shares. And what's incredible about this, they don't even comply with GAAP. And so what this law said was, it was Rick Scott who originally got the momentum, the senator out of Florida, on this deal, and said, look, we'll give them 3 years to comply. That's a long time. And then they can stay listed on the exchange. And while Gensler was the head of the SEC, he didn't enforce this law. But a new sheriff's in town named Paul Atkins just got confirmed last week. And he has made a public statement saying, okay, I've had enough of this too. Every Chinese company that is listed right now that is not complying with GAAP, I'm going to delist them. That could be as much as $800 billion of market cap.
Wow.
That should happen, because why is it fair for an American company to have to pay for compliance and be compliant with all the regulators here in America to stay listed, which costs millions of dollars in some case, and they're competing with a Chinese company right next door to them that doesn't have to? Why is that okay? Under what scenario is that fair? And I think that's the kind of question that people like me are raising their hand and saying, enough. Let's fix this problem once and for all. And yes, there's going to be stories of that poor woman's situation, but these tariffs are not going to be forever. This is a game of chicken, two economies colliding with each other, one cheating and stealing and one not. At some point, you got to resolve the issue. And I think at some time in the near future, Xi is going to call Trump and say, okay, where do you want to meet? You want to go to Geneva?
Is he? Because I mean, whenever you hear somebody talk about this, who knows China, who knows Xi, knows Chinese culture, they say he'll never call, never. Like he cannot lose face. I mean, any communist country leader would be this way, and that includes him. That they just can't. He can't lose face. That's the last thing he'll do. And now Trump has to find a way of going to him. But Trump's kind of like that himself as well.
Well, I can assure you within the Communist Party of China, there is a bunch of narrative going on about how long do they want to do this, because the only reason you stay in power in a communist society as a supreme leader is everybody's fed. They can take care of their families and they have jobs in factories. Now, what you could do, even though they're not making rubber mats anymore because they're all sitting on the water, no one's going to buy them. There aren't enough markets big enough to replace.
This is a point that I was making in an earlier video, like to get people to understand the level of it's not poverty. Exactly his point, right? We are the Goliath. We are the Mack truck. They have the personnel, right? They have the people, the cheap labor. If you take a look at it, a poor people in the United States, the median wage for a poor, quote unquote poor, is $15,000 a year. The median wage for poor in China is $500 a year. $500 a year, right? How long can those people last without jobs? If you're poor, median income is $500 a year. It's not feasible, right? And that's the point. The point that needs to get hammered over and over and over again is: are we going to experience pain? Yes. Relative to China, it's not even a question. Not even a question. Yeah, there are no elections in China, but exactly to his point, if his people start starving in the streets, that's going to get out there. That's not going to be good. There'll be a massive revolution. They don't want that. They don't want that, right? You need a full belly. It goes a long way. Goes a long way. They don't have all the bells and whistles that our quote unquote poor have. Our poor are their middle class, upper middle class, right? Our poor, for the most part, have at least where I am, if you're close to a metropolitan area, the poor have what? They have AC, they got cars usually, they have televisions, they have internet. Chinese poor don't have that, right? Chinese poor do not have that. Their bellies are full, that's what they got, and no riots, right? Once that goes away, different animal, totally different story.
It's the American consumer. There just aren't. So at the end of the day, you got to start asking yourself, okay, if I'm Xi, do I print money so that I can pay these workers and then have hyperinflation where a loaf of bread, goes up 1,000%, the Venezuelan model? Or do I work something out with Trump so all this stuff we've made can get back into the market, including that woman's, rubber bib? I mean, somebody's got to buy that. There's not enough people around the world to buy that, except you got to have the 39% of the consumers are sitting in America. That's who's going to sell the product. That's why I would think at some point, because I'm a pragmatic guy. Again, I look at the policy. I know there's a lot of politics here, but if I'm Xi, I'm thinking, okay, how do I save face on this deal? What do I do here to get things going again so the stuff on the boats gets to America with no tariffs on it? All the Europeans have the guys in England right now today are saying, okay, let's drop our tariffs on agriculture so we can start shipping grain in both directions, whatever they want out of ag. German car parts, we talked about that. All of these guys are working this out. Xi has to do that too. Now, is it going to take 2 weeks? Is it going to take 2 months? I don't know. But I guarantee you there's no scenario where Xi can outlast the American consumer, because that's
100%.
really what you're talking about, Megyn. At the end of the day, can he really cut himself off from the largest consumer market on earth? No. And so I'm on the camp that says, okay, let's see how long this game of chicken lasts. But would I like to resolve this thing once and for all? Let me speak on behalf of millions of investors and entrepreneurs in America. Yes, I want to do business in China. I'm willing to compete with Chinese on a level playing field, and I want to open the markets up. Yes, I have nothing against the Chinese people. I don't like their government. I don't like their policy. And if you're not going to change the government, then let's cut a deal to have a reciprocal tariffs or no tariffs, but definitely access to the markets and definitely got to play by the rules. I would like to raise money in Hong Kong. I would like to approach their markets. I don't want to have my IP stolen. I don't want a 51% Chinese partner. We don't force that on Chinese companies here. But I'm telling you, it's time to clean this mess up once and for all. And yeah, it's uncomfortable and the ebb and flow and the volatility. But I say to everybody, chillax. Let this administration get this thing done and let's move on, because the last 20 administrations never dealt with it. This one is, you may hate Trump. You may have Trump derangement syndrome. I feel your pain for that. I don't care, because that's not what matters. It's the policy.
You heard about tariffs recently, plus inflation.
There you go. He says it really well, always. I'm a big fan of the way he's getting this out there. It needs to get out there. It needs to be put in in context that people can understand. Kevin's very good at doing that. Guys, thanks a lot. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. There'll be a lot more videos to come, and we'll break them down as they go. Thank you very much.